Good afternoon and welcome to this latest edition of the RCB Radio Sports Show, live on 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by regular RCB analyst Nicholas Rynne and renowned Clare sports journalist Seamus Hayes to look back on an eventful week in terms of action, competitive action on the fields, in terms of our four adult Clare teams, the Clare's senior footballers under Colm Collins, the ladies footballers under Evan Talty's charge, also the Clare hurlers under Brian Lohan, and the camogie charges under Ger O'Connell. But it's football where we start this evening, and it was a good week in terms of all footballing circles, in terms of Clare GA. Both for the men's team and the ladies team. The men's team had a 113 to 13 points. First time ever victory above in Newbridge against Kildare. Both sides were unbeaten going into this contest, and Clare rallying, dare I say it, second half performance saw them triumphed on the scoreline of 13 to 13. So it's there where we start this evening. And if I can come to you, Seamus, first of all, this victory by Collins' charges away to Kildare. I know Clare have had some fantastic away victories in the past, above in Down, above in Cavan, when the chips were down. But how would you rank this victory against Kildare maybe in the last 5 or 6 years? I was above in Newbridge, and I have to say it's probably one of the best Clare performances that I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it was a very impressive performance. I watched the entire game, and I had it recorded when I came home from Portlaoise, and I watched it, and particularly the second half, Clare played outstanding football. You know, they were fully deserving of the victory. And while Clare have beaten Kildare in recent years, and, you know, they beat them last year here in Innis, and they had beaten them in that Division 3 league final in Croke Park a couple of seasons ago, but they hadn't won in Newbridge. And Kildare were really buyed up for this one. They had beaten Cork. Maybe many hadn't fancied them to beat Cork in the first round a week earlier. Ger O'Connell from Kerry is in his second year in charge, so there were really high hopes that Kildare are going places this year. But they have Kildare, I suppose, have been inconsistent in the last couple of years, and maybe one thing that they could be accused of is not maybe treating opposition highly. You know, they kind of would have expected to beat Clare rather than believing that they could do it. And you know, Clare have improved year on year under Colm Collins. There's no doubt in the world about that. And I suppose maybe a lot of us were a bit concerned going into this campaign when you had to replace the likes of Gary Bryn and Gordon Kelly, who have been absolutely outstanding throughout the last decade, and to have to replace two key men like that. But there's players on the panel, and Colm has said this a couple of times, they're chomping at the bit to get into the team. And of the 33 or 4, maybe that's on the panel at the moment, any one of those is capable of playing. There's a buzz at training, there's a buzz amongst the squad, and you know, it's great. And while there's nothing guaranteed yet in relation to the league or in relation to securing retaining Division 2 status or anything like that, you know, there's a lot to play for again on this Sunday. But last week's win was one of the outstanding victories of the weekend across the league. You know, and full credit has to go to all involved, the players, the management, the people who are coaching and training the team, because the players are in tremendous shape. You know, you can see the fitness levels are very, very high. The teamwork is very, very impressive. In the 2 games over the last 2 weeks, I suppose Clare have dominated possession from their own kickouts. You know, and they're not wasting it in. You know, there's great teamwork, and then team captain Owen Cleary is just in outstanding form at the moment and leading by example. So it was a superb win, and it puts us in a very strong position.
And Seamus, we all know Colm in the past is the ability to find good coaches and in terms of getting involved in the Clare setup. But so far, in terms of Jerry McGowan's sort of influence, I know it's two games in, but in terms of the impact he seems to have in terms of being the main coach on the team, it seems he's brought it forward another step again. I mean, I was there in Kildare, and the discipline in the Clare defending, what struck me very much in terms in the second half, when Kildare had so much piles of pressure in Clare, how they were able to rotate and sort of adjust, and how they look sort of comfortable defending Kildare at sort of times. And he looks to me that while Brian Carson did very well in his 2 years, it looks like Jerry McGowan has maybe taken it a step further in terms of what he's doing so far. He looks like a very shrewd appointment so far.
Yeah, it certainly does. But I'd say, in fairness, and I'd say all the lads would say this, the backroom team are a team. You know, they're all contributing. I was fortunate enough to have seen a couple of the bits of the training sessions, and Jerry McGowan, Declan O'Keefe's role is immense. Rob Mulcahy, the strength and conditioning coach, you know, he really has them in superb physical condition. And Enda Coughlin and Declan Downs, you know, they're very much part of it, and they've been there for the last couple of years, and they know the scene like the back of their hands. And we all know what Enda Coughlin did as a player, and what he's doing for his club, and you know, he's transferring that onto the field as well. So there's a good team of backroom people there, all of whom are working so hard to get Clare football to where it is. And Jerry McGowan has kind of added to that coming in this year, you know, with his record coming from Tullastrand and Sligo and what he achieved there. And obviously he's carrying it forward now. But you know, Declan O'Keefe is a very, very experienced man. We saw the results of his work with St. Brecons last year, and he's with them again this year. You know, he's been through it all. He knows what it is to win. His All-Ireland success with Kerry. You know, so there's a very experienced backroom team there, and Colm has moulded them all together. You know, and he's put them all together and has them all working well together. And that's, I suppose, the secret of success: teamwork. And there's teamwork behind the scenes and teamwork on the field. And, you know, if they can keep that going, you know, Clare could well be in Division 1 in a week's time.
And I suppose, Nicholas, in terms of that, we've seen throughout the past in Clare that probably we all been quelling about the panel and maybe strength and depth and impact. But for Clare, what struck me in Kildare was probably the Clare bench, and coming off the bench was probably stronger than what Kildare were able to bring off their bench. Seamus, I'll come to you there because Nicholas has drifted off on us. But in terms of the bench coming off in Clare, but Joe McGann sort of the impact again. And I suppose people are clamming and piping that this guy should be starting on the Clare team, and he's unlucky not to be start. But in terms of having that sort of impact as well.
Yeah, certainly. And you know, Colm said after the first round win against Laois that the toughest job they had was picking the panel and who to leave out, and that there's such competition for places, and that any one of the players that are in training at the moment is capable of being in the squad on a given day. And as you rightly said, like, you know, Joe McGann, huge impact when he came off the bench last week. Emmett McMahon came on, got on the score sheet. Then you had the experience of Kevin Hartnett coming on. You know, you have so many options there, and that's without Jamie Malone and Hodge Collins and the Conor Jordan, who hasn't made his appearance yet. You know, so they have huge options, and I suppose it's a headache that they're delighted to have, trying to pick the team and trying to decide on the starting 15 on a given day. So, you know, I suppose the downside, if you like, at the moment is the fact that Jamie and Hodge Collins and Conor Jordan, these aren't getting games because of niggling injuries, and that they're not, you know, that they're just missing out on the team on the team games. But you know, it's great to have those kind of options, and it's great to have that experience waiting on the wings. You know, and hopefully they'll all be fit and raring to go come championship time.
And I suppose, Nicholas, in terms of the league, we all know about the league's importance to Clare. In terms of that, it's important over sort of championship as sort of such for Clare in the last sort of few years. Do you think maybe the way things are gone with Clare this year and being drawn in the Munster in a knockout game against Kerry in the quarterfinal, that for the players really, the league really this year is the season given how well it's going? Nicholas, can you hear me? So, Seamus,
Okay.
I'll revert that sort of question to yourself again.
Well, the league has been very important to Clare over the last number of years, and I think I said it somewhere last week that the pundits, as we call them, have predicted each of the last 4 years that Clare would be relegated from Division 2. And it hasn't happened. I suppose it shows the progress that Clare are making. Like as you said, Joseph, with a couple of minutes to go in the final game of last year's campaign, Clare were heading for Division 1. Now, it just didn't happen, but they were that close to being in Division 1. They're close to being in Division 1 now for next year, but there's a big job ahead on Sunday, and a small little thing could see Clare, if things didn't go right, could see the relegation slip into place again, which would be, a pity if that were to happen. But I'd be very positive. I believe that Clare are in a great place. Our form against Cork in recent years has been good. Clare have beaten Cork in the league down in Cork and here in Innis, and they won't hold any fears of Cork like maybe in the old days when lads was kind of say, here Cork and Kerry. Clare in a good place now where they believe that they're capable of matching anybody, and they have continuously improved. And the real plus is the way the young players want to play for Clare. I don't think anybody declined the invitation to come into the panel. In the old days, you'd be lucky if 1 out of every 3 that was asked to come in came in. But they all see the opportunities that are there now. They see that they can play at the highest level against the best teams in the country, and that they can match those. Like the standard of football that Clare played last week in Kildare, it was top class.
I fully agree.
And that was a plus more. Like, it wasn't a case of a lucky break and Clare got ahead of the points. They played fantastic football, really tore Kildare apart in the second half. Some great moves, and with a bit of luck, could even have had a bigger winning margin. So that in itself shows the progress that has been made. So I'd be very, very up about next Sunday's game against Cork. I think there's a great opportunity for Clare to show that they are up there and to produce another top class performance.
Nicholas, can you hear us there? Okay.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, Nicholas. In terms of Cork at the weekend, what are your thoughts on probably that for Colm Collins? We've seemed to have the hoodoo over Cork in the last sort of few years in terms of results. The Cork seem to be Clare seems to be in a bogey team for Cork.
That's right, Jay. They have that Indian sign over Cork at the moment, and I suppose with the conferences in the Clare camp now, and I think Cork will probably be low on confidence. It'll give Clare, Clare should really do well against Cork, I think, and they're not afraid of Cork anymore. It was a time it would have been a problem, but facing down against Cork, but those days are gone, and that confidence when out against Cork, they really have that,
And Nicholas, in terms of expectation, it's very rare that Clare will go into a Cork game playing Cork is probably with the favourites tag, but that'll be probably the case this coming weekend in Cusack Park. Many people will have penciled Clare down as sort of favourites. Is that a sort of dangerous element? We always know when people put it up right off Clare, they seem to do their best. Now they're probably carrying the favourites tag, and everyone are saying, well, Cork are coming up there in terms of that, and probably Clare will be expected to win in sort of home soil and stuff like that. Do you think maybe that Clare are experienced enough to deal with that sort of pressure as having the favourites tag on them this weekend?
Yeah, I think that there won't have any problem with the favourites tag, really. Like, they are the favourites for a reason, like, because they're going so well, and they've beaten 2 top teams in Laois and Kildare, and they're playing at home. So why wouldn't they be confident and looking forward to Cork coming up, and they will wear that favourite tags. They have a lot of experience in the team. Look at David Tuberty, what he produced there that Sunday. I mean, that kind of experience you cannot buy, and Clare have that experience in the team. So there was a time when we wouldn't wear the favourites tag well, I suppose. But I think now over the last number of years, especially since Colin Collins has come in, he's instilled all that confidence into the team. And with a manager like that, I mean, you would expect, having lost two of our top players, that we would struggle a little bit for a little while. But it was just a seamless transition, bringing in a few new players, and it didn't upset the team's rhythm in any way. And as Seamus pointed out there, players are just champing at the bit to get on this team. They know Clare are going places, and they know that they're in a great place. So confidence is high, and wearing the favourites tag, that's what they want to be. They want to be favourites. We were too long, just hoping to have the odd good day and being underdogs constantly. So I think they'll wear the favourites tag well, and they're well capable of beating Cork in Cusack, especially in Cusack Park. I think, and 3 wins out of 3 wins, wouldn't that? I was looking at the table today, like, and Clare sitting on the top of it, like, it's fantastic to see it, like,
And I suppose, Seamus, if I can talk a bit about Cork now, I suppose they did bounce back against Laois, and I suppose we know that there would be a kick in Laois after how flat they were in terms of Clare. And obviously Laois did put up a better performance against Cork, but Cork got in for the 2 sort of critical goals. And I suppose you look at Cork, and there's no doubt there is talent there in terms of all their underage success, in terms of 20 All-Irelands. You look at the likes of Cathal Mahoney, you look at the likes of Blake Murphy, Ian Maguire. People probably rank him still in the top 5 or 6 midfielders in the sort of country. So from midfield up, they still really do have an awful lot of talent. It's people, Robbie, the back 6 where people ask questions about Cork in terms of where that strength is. But certainly if Cork can get their mojo up, they're very well on their day, as people have seen, like Kerry in the past. They're well able of turning the side over, and especially they do have the forward players if they get on song that can hurt Clare. Whether they have the defence now to keep Clare out on the other end is the big question.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You can never take Cork lightly. Cork football, like, they've had a number of lean years. They're just back up from Division 3, and that would worry me a small bit, in that they don't want to go back down to Division 3, because it will have consequences for where they'll be in the championship. So that's why I expect them to be really fired up for this game on Sunday. And as I say, they have talented forwards, Mark Collins, the hurlers. They're very talented forwards if they're given space, and they certainly will put it up. Like, there's a huge amount at stake on Sunday in this Division 2A South. There's a huge amount at stake for all 4 participants. Like, Laois are not out of the reckoning yet. If Laois can beat Kildare on Sunday and Clare beat Cork, that'll leave Kildare, Cork and Laois on equal points, and it'll come down to score difference to resolve who will go into the relegation playoff then. So there is a lot for Laois to play for as well this week. But that's something that they'll be aiming at. But Cork won't want to be facing relegation down to Division 3 again. That's one thing that they won't want, because they fought so hard to get back up. And I think Clare will have to be wary of that. And I'm sure Colin Collins will have the players well advised, that they cannot take anything for granted in that regard, that Cork are going to be there, and that Cork, they're going to make things tough. And that has always been Cork. They're still reeling a bit, I think, from the defeat in the Munster final last year. I think that they felt when they beat Kerry, albeit with a late goal and maybe against the run of play to a certain extent, but I think they felt when they beat Kerry last year that they were on the way to the All-Ireland semi-final. And I think maybe they took their eye off the ball a bit and Tipperary just outfought them and outplayed them on the day. So they're still reeling a bit from that. And, that's gone. They have to forget about that. And this is the target now. And the fact that Clare have beat them at the last 2 or 3 occasions would have hurt them a bit. So they're going to be well fired up for Sunday. And, it has the makings of a great game. But I believe that Clare are in a happy place. I believe that the players know they're in a good place and that they want to stay in that spot. So from that point of view, I expect Clare to be ready for the challenge.
I suppose, Nicholas, there's another game in Division 2 where an awful lot of Clare people have an awful lot of watching eyes on in terms of its significance. And this is in the north side of the division where Mayo play Meath. And obviously, if things go right for Clare at the weekend, that will be one of our opponents in terms of promotion. But the fact that Mayo and Meath are both qualified already for that promotion sort of semi-final, Westmeath are down, can't catch them in terms of that. There's a chance maybe for both sides maybe to rest a few players in terms of maybe any sort of niggles or knocks or stuff like that. Both Mayo and Meath, you think, would be confident given their own, they will probably look at the divisions out and say whoever we draw either first or second in that, we might have, we back ourselves to get up. So is there a sort of sense that Mayo and Meath, that sort of game there, obviously could be a glorified challenge in terms of that? Nicholas, you hear me?
Yeah, I suppose, Jim, it'll be, once the two of them have qualified, they'd be looking at, experimenting, probably resting players, as you so rightly said. I suppose Meath more than Mayo will be looking to see what they have, finding their way and using this as a real chance to maybe push. I don't know, a reasonably strong team, but it is no more than a glorified challenge game, as you said. It's a training session, really. In fairness, a lot of the league is being used by some teams, like, to see what they have and test their mettle and bring on a few players as well. And it'll be no different for Mayo and Meath when they meet on Sunday. They'll be just feeling their way along, seeing where they're at. So, I suppose when I think about it again, though, they'll probably go with a fairly strong team and see where they are and use this as a test to see, the championship is not too far away now. So, I mean, they won't be concerned whether they finish first or second. They won't be too concerned about that, because they're not going to pick and choose who they're going to meet next. Like, they'll be happy enough to go out, and players are looking for jerseys, for the championship as well. So that'll be another, for the players, it won't be probably a training session. It'll be, the copper fest in their place, and anybody who's looking to get a jersey for the championship will surely be. Will want to be on that team and from both sides and nail down a spot, like.
And I suppose, Seamus, obviously the game, we shouldn't really be jumping the gun in terms of that. Cork is the sort of opponents, but just a quick sort of question on that: if Clare were successful against Kildare, in terms of that promotion sort of match, is a neutral venue, whether Clare come first or second, in terms of that, will it be a neutral venue, or is there a bonus for topping your group, whether in terms of having a home probably semi-final?
I don't think so. I think it's a neutral. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a neutral venue. But it's a cross draw. Like, if you win, the winners of 2A will play the runners up in 2B.
Yeah.
And obviously the league semi-final is going to be the crucial game at that stage, because the winners of that, the two teams go up.
Yeah.
So that would be crucial. But I've no doubt that Colin Collins isn't even looking at that. He's not looking at Meath or Mayo, because the policy is with him all the time that you don't look past the next game, and the next game is Cork. They know it's a big game, and they're going to be totally focused on that. And you can be sure that training tonight, or training whatever nights are training before the game, everything will be focused on Cork and delivering another display like they did last Sunday, and maybe opening that another step, because that has been the target all year. They've stepped up and improved from game to game in the last 2 weeks, and if they can do that again this week, it will see them safely top the group and to see Division 2 status secure. So that's what's at stake on Sunday, and they're not going to be looking past that until Sunday night.
And I suppose we have to mention now the ladies footballers, the first game under the reign of Evan Talty. And I suppose it was a victory by a solitary point, 12 points to 1-8. A deep score late in the game, a game that ebbed and flowed. Fidelma Marnin, the West Clare Gale star, kicking the late score to guarantee Clare victory. But if I can start with you, Seamus, on this one. Clare, without Niamh D, without Grania Nolan, without a few other so-called established players, a few players along the say the sides of the team and the wings and the corners got sort of debuts. Wexford came down, they put it up to Clare for sort of large spells and that, led it at a few sort of occasions. But for a management team to go out on your first day inside in Cusack Park, maybe all eyes on you, blood a few players and without a few established players and get the victory, I suppose all in all, a good day out.
Certainly a good day out and a great start. Like to make a winning start when you're after taking over a team is obviously a huge boost. And Evan Talty and his management team had put in huge work over the last couple of weeks. And, you know, Clare, they had announced a new sponsor last week. They had a lot of new initiatives. And I think that obviously reflected well on everybody involved and obviously gave a great boost to the players who saw the way they're being treated and the way that the committee are going out and arranging sponsorship and making sure that they're equally well treated like their male counterparts. So from that point of view, it was great. And like the last time Wexford came down to Clare, it was maybe 2 years ago, they beat Clare in Dunbeg. So obviously, you know, there was a target there for Evan Talty on home soil that they wanted to win. And they were boosted by the fact that they had the excellent facility of Cusack Park at their disposal as well, you know. So it was great. Now, they're facing a step up this weekend. They're facing a senior team in Kerry who have been knocking on the door at the top level in recent times, you know, and they have to go to Kerry. But they're going to gain invaluable experience from this, and it's going to boost them considerably going forward. You know, they're building now for the championship, which is, I suppose, their main target, the intermediate championship. They got to the semi-final last year, but they're building for that. And, you know, it's a great opportunity for them to show that last weekend's win has boosted them and that you know, are prepared to go another step now.
And I suppose, Nicholas, for a Clare ladies football team to win a game without your two top scorers, normally for Clare it's Grania Nolan, Niamh D. Niamh D might kick 1-2, 1-4, 1-5, 1-6. Grania might kick over 6 or 7 for frees. Both not available, and we saw the emergence of a new potential, maybe future star for Clare at centre forward, Kilmurray Bricken's Ciara McCarthy, who scored 4 points on her debut in terms of inter-county sort of football as well. She'd be known for playing under Evans' team in Kilmurray Bricken when they won the intermediate title. So I suppose with the namesake McCarthy, I suppose there's always going to be football in you anyway.
That's right. Yeah. It was a big win, and as you said, without three of their top players, like, you know, it was a great win. And Seamus hit the nail on the head there. This is about boosting confidence, and I suppose that Seamus said it there as well about the work that's been done in the background. And Evan Talty has done fantastic work, and the team responding to that. So there's where you get results if you prepare well, and if you're training and everything else is put into place, you know. And there's where the management team really do their work, is to have everything in place, and they're not cribbing, they're getting on with it, and they get, you know, they're doing their own work really, like, and that's the management's job, of course. And the girls have responded to it. It was a big win on Sunday, a great win to beat Wexford, and I know it's you know, it is a step up now against Kerry, but that's where you want to be going. You want to be stepping up into the place and playing those senior teams and getting the experience, as Seamus said, which you know, and how much more stronger the panel will be when those girls comes back as well. So it's great setup by all accounts, you know. And the response has been fantastic, like, and that's what you want. Evan Talty must be delighted now with you know, he's played his part. He's got everything ready, sponsorship and everything, put everything in place, and train going well, and a style play that he wants to play. You know, he outlined to us what kind of a style of play he wanted to play. So they weren't just going out there Sunday, throwing on the Clare jersey and hoping for the best. He has a plan in place, and he'll have a plan in place going down to Kerry as well. And that's, you know, the same as Colm Collins. You know, a lot of you know, the confidence comes from your manager and what the manager does. Managers don't win games, they say, but I don't know about that. You know, but they put everything in place. They put the jigsaw together so a team can go out and perform. And that's what Evan Talty seems to be doing. I was very impressed with him by what he had to say, and he's followed up with a fantastic win. And you can't ask any more than that. The next day is a different day out, but you're going in with confidence after a win under your belt in the first round. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, and I suppose Nicholas, and I'll probably touch on this point with Seamus as well, in terms of the home venue, in terms of the Clare ladies footballers getting to use the facilities in Cusack Park. And I suppose it's a great thing, and it's probably shown the interest in the ladies game in terms of getting the venue. But hopefully going forward, this can be more regular, more the norm, that we see the ladies footballers inside Cusack Park playing actions, and maybe their underage county teams as well, in terms of their minor side and sort of stuff like that, in terms of ladies sort of football as well. Because no doubt about it, when the gates do open and when the viewers do open, that crowds will come and see a Clare ladies football team in Cusack Park if it's available to them, and they will go and watch an underage Clare ladies football minors team as well inside in Cusack Park if the opportunity comes about. So is this the first maybe of changing that rear guard, that we're going to see the ladies footballers more often in Cusack Park playing, and long may it continue? Nicholas?
Yeah, well, Jim, any team that wears the Clare jersey, you know, any team, male or female, deserve to be playing in Cusack Park. And it isn't always possible. Of course, it's not always possible. But where it's possible, it should be made available. And you know, if you pull on the Clare jersey, you deserve to be playing in the best venue, and you deserve to get people to get behind you and support you. And the Clare ladies are deserving of that. And it was great that it was on in Cusack Park last Sunday. Hopefully they'll get as many games as they can there. It's probably not viable to get every game there. But where possible, the gate should be open for them and allowed to go in and use those facilities that are there. And the venue is very important. And I'm sure it'll lift everybody, you know, the players to be going into big county grounds. You know, it has to be a great thing, you know, and good facilities in there, and get the same recognition and the same appreciation as any other team to play in there, you know. And that's one thing I would be very adamant about, is that our county teams, when they put on that Clare jersey, that they're given that the whole county board and everybody else involved is behind them fully and gives them the support that they deserve. You know, and that's Cusack Park has to be open to all our teams.
And Seamus, before we just leave this final segment and we take our break, is that a sentiment you would echo where available, that the Cusack Park should be available to the ladies footballers, or juvenile intercounty teams, as well as their adult team?
Oh, I would say so, yeah, and I'd say everybody would agree with that. But as Nicholas said, you know, it's not always possible. You know, there's a lot of work involved in the maintenance of a pitch and the caretaking of a pitch, and it's particularly difficult, in the current climate, you know, with COVID and all the protocols, and you know, you have to leave so much extra time between games because facilities have to be sanitized when one game finishes before the next group can come in for the second game. So it's particularly difficult. But you know, I think where possible, you know, the camogie team has been in there in the past, but you know, camogie team has developed their own county grounds now, and full credit to them for that. So it's where possible, it has to, you know, obviously everybody would support her, but it's just not always possible, because every team is looking for the facility for training as well. You know, and I'm sure that every evening this week there's some team training there because championship is so close between, it isn't the senior hurlers, there's the senior footballers or whatever, but there's something going on all the time. But obviously that's the ideal scenario. Play as many games by your county teams at all levels and all grades as possible in your county grounds.
That concludes the first part of this week's RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb.ie. Do join us after the break where attention turns to the small ball, where we talk about Clare's victory over Laois on the scoreline of 227 to 117. Brian Lohan's first win of the season for the Clare hurlers, and also a disappointing day out for the Clare camogie side, who went down to Limerick on the scoreline of 224 to 111. All to come after the break. Do join us again. Welcome back to the second part of the RCB Radio Sports Show, live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and online at www.rcb. The focus now switches to the small ball, and for Clare hurling, I suppose after all the troublesome start to 2021, it was good news on the pitch this weekend. The first W was collected, the first 2 points in the league were in the bag. And I suppose if I can start off with you, Seamus, I know yourself and Nicholas were at the game. 227 to 117 on that scoreline. I suppose the result was never in doubt from a long way out.
Well, certainly the second half, first half was reasonably tight, and maybe Clare took a while to settle in. They had to make some late changes from the team that was named in the programme. Tony Kelly was out, hadn't recovered from the injury the previous week, but they were totally dominant in the second half and dictated matters throughout the field. And, a big improvement. Now, some people might say maybe Laois didn't offer as strong a resistance as maybe Leslie had been hoping for, but you play as good as your let play, and Clare certainly had stepped up considerably. And one of the highlights for me was the hurling of Shane O'Donnell at wing forward. Okay. He scored a wonderful first goal, was the main architect of the second goal, which was expertly taken by substitute Mark Rogers. But he had a hand in a lot of scores, and anytime the ball came near him, he simply opened up the Laois defence. They didn't know whether he was going to go left, right, down the middle, or where he was going to go. He's a very skillful man, moves very, very well. And to see him at wing forward was superb. Now, obviously, I suppose people might hold court on whether that's the place to play him or not until they see him against maybe stronger opposition. But he's such a talented hurler. I think that he'll take on anybody in whatever position that he's playing in. But he was one of the highlights of the day for me, the way he played. Dermot Ryan continuing to stake a claim for a permanent place in the team. Really, very impressive again at wing back. I thought Jack Brown was very good in defence. Tigerish tackling, his reading in the game was superb. He picked up a lot of breaks, behind his fellow defenders, and players like that. They really played well. I suppose lads will be saying like Adam Shanahan didn't get on the score sheet, so I suppose that gives him something to aim at the next day. But he was well policed, and he was well marked, and so there's a lot to be positive about going forward on this display. Now there will be tougher challenges ahead, not least the next day where they have to go to Parnell Park to play Dublin, who have 2 wins under their belt already. So Clare's first points on the board, and obviously another win would, I suppose, move you away from the dreaded word of relegation. But they're building, as Brian Lohan said after, that they have one, if not 2 eyes on the championship at this stage. There's only a few weeks of the championship, so he was making the point that it's so hard to, I suppose, you have to focus on the league and try and secure your position, but you have to prepare for the championship as well. And they have given quite a number of players a run at this stage. And you mentioned that, like Mark Rogers was very, very impressive when he came on at half time in the second half of the last day. He got a goal and a couple of points, and threatened the Laois defence. So from that point of view, it was a great win. 227 is a very impressive scoreline. On the downside, I suppose 20 wides. Nobody likes to see that. But as the manager said after, when you're scoring 227, you're creating the chances, and it's something you can work on. But it was very impressive. fully merited win, and hopefully it will get the team on the right track now.
Nicholas, in terms of that game against Laois, if I might be mistaken on this, but was that the first outing for Aaron Fitzgerald in a Clare hurling jersey, and how did he get on?
Yeah, I think it was Aaron's first game. First game we seen him in the football jersey for the county, but I think it was the first I saw him in anyway, and I thought he did well. You know, he's a big, strong lad, very athletic, and you know, I thought he did really well. Now, I was happy with him his first day out. I suppose not easy. You know, slotting into a new team. It'll take him a while to find his feet, but he did what was asked of him. I thought, you know, maybe a few years ago would have been a better time to be starting him than now. But you know, he's still a great option to have. You know, and he certainly could be wanting there on that full back line, yes.
Yeah, and I suppose Nicholas, in terms of the league, I suppose that sort of the momentum, that sort of downward spiral has been quenched now after that victory over Laois, sort of such. So players now have got that sort of monkey off their sort of back, the sort of the first two outings, obviously, and obviously picking up that sort of win as well. So having a week off now, getting back to bases, obviously a few players probably coming back from injuries that'll be available, getting to touch on things in terms of the training ground as well. That'll probably bring them on a bit further, and obviously give that sort of buzz back now, having that sort of win under their belts. They can sort of, dare I say, not relax into the Dublin game, but sort of enjoy the build up to it that bit more.
Yeah, it was obviously important to go up to Laois and get a win. You know, that was number one, because Laois can be a tricky team too. Like, and they showed some class Laois during the game. And you know, for a long period, that first half, Laois really, you know, right up to half time, Laois threw everything at Clare, but Clare were able to respond. And then in the second half, they were able to pull away. So it was important to get the 2 points on the board, obviously, take a bit of pressure off. But I don't think the league has been the disaster that people are talking about. You know, they went up to Antrim, they were only beaten by a point, away from home in a strange pitch and with windy conditions. The same could be said in Cusack Park. They owned the game for 60 minutes against Wexford, and a late rally and a man sent off, you know, and they were only beaten by a couple of points there as well. So I think the league is I'd be very happy with the way the league has gone, actually, you know, because Brian Lohan has got a chance to see, you know, a lot of players and see how they are. No, you must remember, they're heading up to Laois, they were upset by this COVID thing, this COVID controversy. And Brian Lohan was 100% right about that, you know, as that proved as the week wore on. And, you know, that you know, trying to, you know, that kind of upset the camp as well, like, you know, but they stood up to that as well, like, you know. You know, I looking at this league so far, Clare are coming along nicely. And I'd be happy, you know. They obviously have to nail down places, and you know, as you know, they have 2 more games. A big game now against Dublin will really test fellas, like, and it'll be interesting what team he lines out with again now the next day. And you know, up in Parnell Park is a big ask. You can beat Dublin, you might have a good chance of beating them at Cusack Park, but it's a bit of a fortress for them up there now in Parnell Park. And they're going reasonably well. Dublin, they had a good win over Antrim there last Saturday. So, you know, it's a great challenge for Clare now to be heading up there and finding out more about themselves. But I think they're progressing nicely. I'm sure the training is progressing nicely, and it's all progressing towards the 27th of June, which is the really one. Nobody will remember Antrim or Wexford. And if we're down at hurlers, and maybe hopefully by then there'll be a few people allowed in. If we're down at hurlers and we can beat Waterford, which I believe we can, nobody will be wondering how well do you remember the game in Port Laois, or do you remember the game in Antrim? You know, it's all about the championship team, and that's what it's about in hurling this year, especially. You see Cork breaking up 7 goals against Westmeath, like, but it's the first round of the championship is the big one always. So I'm I'm very, I'm happy. I wasn't happy to be beaten by Antrim or Wexford, but it wasn't too despondent about it, like, because I think it's all geared for June, which is, we're a month away from it now, I think. And the next two games are very important in that by the time we reach Kilkenny, hopefully we'll be able, as supporters, as media people, we'll be able to see what our championship team will be near enough, give or take, a few places. Like, but there's a lot of people, like the footballers are putting up their hand for places, but the hurlers are doing the same thing as well. Like, and a lot of different players been tried out now. And Seamus Rynne, as Seamus said, Mark Rogers is really putting his hand up there. He had a half an hour, he scored a goal and 2 points. The goal he scored was magnificent in the way that he was in the right position and how coolly he took it. That great passing from O'Donnell. And the forwards, the second half of that game, I thought the forwards started to move and put passes together and put movements together, and that's what I'd like to see a bit more of that now against Dublin.
I suppose, lads, we have 5 minutes left. I suppose it's important that we touch on the camogie side as well. After a good positive display against Kilkenny on the first day out, I suppose people went in with an awful lot of optimism heading to play Limerick. And unfortunately for Clare, they came up short. A deserved victory for Limerick by all accounts on the scoreline of 2-14 to 111. And out of that, Clare's 111, 8 points came from Chloe Morey and 1-1 from Emer Kelly. So, Seamus, if I can touch on that sort of game first. Limerick, by all accounts, very much deserving winners against the Clare side that sort of struggled, and apart from Chloe and Emer, didn't really cause too much threat to them.
Yeah, disappointing result for Clare, no doubt. And Ger O'Connell and his management team will be disappointed. But in fairness, Limerick have been knocking on the door for a breakthrough in the last 2 years in particular. And they have a lot of girls playing camogie at the moment. I've been watching it there for the last week or two. They have huge panels. They've had a lot of trials to cut back their panels for the senior and junior game, and their juniors had beaten Clare the previous week. Now Clare juniors bounced back last weekend with a good win to get off the mark. But it was disappointing for Clare, and they find themselves, in facing into a relegation battle now. But it's a young team. It's a team that has to develop and has to be given time to develop. And I suppose there will be a number of knocks before you'll get maybe the credit that one deserves. But they are working very hard. Again, the loss of the likes of Neva D through injury, is a big loss to a team like Clare. You need your experienced players, and when Chloe Morey was out there a year or two ago, we saw then how really valuable she was. As I say, you never miss the water, the well runs dry. Those players are needed for Clare, and they're needed as they try to develop a new team and bring in new players. So while it was disappointing, hopefully they can lift it and get out of the relegation playoff and maintain their status as they continue to build up towards the championship, which, as Nicholas said there about the hurling, the championship is what it's all about for everybody. Nobody likes losing games, and nobody likes being in relegation battles, whatever the grade or whatever the competition, but the championship is what it's all about, and building a team and putting a team together to challenge in the championship is Clare's main target.
I suppose just apologies there. The first game that Clare played was actually against Galway in the camogie, not Kilkenny. They played Galway above in Athenry, and it was a spirited display in that. But Nicholas, I suppose in this, I was just looking at the camogie sort of group as well. There's sort of 3 teams patched in a group sort of such as well. So obviously it's sort of such, you only have 2 games of sort of such. So is it a fair way to judge a team in terms of a short sort of a league space to say, right, you could be facing into a relegation battle just after playing two league games, and maybe putting such a heartworthy display against a serious contender against Galway? Galway probably took an awful lot out of the legs going to play at Limerick then the next day out.
Yeah, it is 2 games and you're facing relegation. I mean, it's a bit, we've never heard of that before. I know it's strange times and to be paid, just after two games. They played excellent against Galway. They weren't able to produce it in Innis last Saturday. They seemed totally focused, and from the very throw in, Limerick really took the game to Clare, and I think Clare were a little bit shell shocked. And they didn't get a chance to settle. Limerick never let them settle. They just targeted every one of those forwards every time. The whole Clare team seemed to be just, Limerick really targeted them in on the tackle. It was a very physical game. And I don't mean dirty now, but physically, the rules of camogie have changed now. And Limerick took advantage of those rules. I think, they had Pat Ryan had them in a great place. I think, really focused on the game. And I think Clare got a bit of a shock that they weren't expecting such an onslaught, I suppose, if that's the right word to use. But, it was very physical from Limerick. And I think Clare struggled with that. And maybe, as you rightly said, maybe tiredness from a big effort up on Athenry the week before. It's a short turnaround. And maybe a little bit in their mind that they had played so well against Galway, and they were going to be playing at home. Maybe a little bit of confidence seeped in, and Limerick can, the Limerick were really focused, and they have a couple of really good forwards who were able to score as well, and that was the difference. And we just didn't get into a rhythm. We weren't allowed to get into a rhythm really, I think, by this Limerick team. And Pat Ryan was up and down the line there, and it was their first game as well, so they were probably that little bit fresher as well. But they just seem to have that little bit more focus. I wouldn't panic. Hopefully, they'll get out of the relegation, and as Seamus said, but it is about the championship. But they will be disappointed, and it will be a bit of a wake-up call for them as well. But 2 games. To have 2 games, how do you judge a team on 2 games and condemn them maybe on 3rd game to relegation? I think it's hard going like just on 2 outings. You're only finding your feet and finding where you're at. I'm sure if they had a game next Sunday or next weekend, they would have learned a lot from the Limerick game, and they would be far, maybe more focused going out. But unfortunately, they're not going to get that chance, except in a relegation battle.
And I suppose, Nicholas, for the last 20 seconds, I know you were at the game there. I suppose we have to acknowledge the scoring of Caoimhe Costello for Limerick on that occasion. I think she got 2-4 or 2-5 against Clare. And was she definitely the standout player in terms of Father McNamara Park at the weekend? Is she a potential future star of camogie?
Oh, she had an absolutely dynamic game. Everything she touched seemed to go over, and we really struggled. She was in corner forward, and we really struggled with her. But she got great assistance as well, from the players around her. But she was the main target, and it was a superb performance from her. You'd have to applaud her, coming off after a performance like that. And she just took it in her stride. I saw her walking off, and it was just another game to her. But she really is a name to look for, because she was just so hard to handle and so hard to stop. Superb skill, and great determination as well. But a super player, and the best in the future. Limerick Saturday as well.
On that note, we'll finish up for this evening. I would like to thank again our regular analyst, hurling analyst on the RCB Sports Show, Nicholas Rynne, renowned Clare Sports journalist Seamus Hayes. That concludes this look back on this week's action in terms of the 4 inter-county teams involved in the Clare adult scene, and obviously a look ahead to Clare's game against Cork at the weekend in the football, and Kerry in the ladies football again. So this show will go out on Friday evening on the RCB Sport YouTube YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Do check it out. And then obviously it'll be repeated then on Monday on the radio show at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. live at 92.5 and 94.8 FM and on www.rcb.ie. But for me, the moment, Jim Conlan saying goodbye, good night, God bless, and we'll see you again next week as we are reflecting on what will hopefully be another positive weekend for everyone involved in Clare GA. Take care.